Now, I'll admit, it's pretty hard to be genuinely scared or creeped out nowadays, especially when it comes to forms of media like, say, movies. Unless there's like a jump scare or something, you just aren't going to get us that easily. But today I'm here to talk about video games. The form of media meant to make you part of the entertainment. The characters, the story, it's all in your hands. You become so much more involved in it that you wonder if that makes you more susceptible to the game's elements, like, say, fear. So it comes to no surprise that it's common these days for video games to try to be scary. In fact, running around with limited control while being stalked by an indestructible nightmare has become its own game genre. So I've made a list of the top 10 creepiest moments in video games in my life. Some are obvious, some in games you'd least expect. Now, keep in mind this list is all my opinions, so I'm going to only cover games that I have played and that, in some point in my life, have made me feel really uneasy. And with that out of the way, let's get this over with. Number 10. Clanker from Banjo-Kazooie and Unagi the Eel from Mario 64. So, I have this deep-seated fear of underwater, and not knowing what's below me while I'm swimming. In fact, swimming is where I always feel the most vulnerable, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Now, whereas most people would pinpoint the start of this fear with the first time they saw Jaws, I've pinpointed it to the first time I've played these two particular games. Both these guys appear underwater. We were always a sitting duck when it came to video games, especially on the Nintendo 64 where both these games originated from, where the controllers were a load of crap as far as swimming goes. That, and you always have to worry about running out of breath. Underwater levels used to give me such hardcore anxiety back in the day. But of course I have even brought up the terrifying creatures you come across while underwater. Now, bear in mind for Clanker, he isn't some big bad underwater monster you have to fight. But just look at him! How many kids have shit their pants just by that introduction? Then you have this asshole from Mario 64. This one does hurt you, and you are completely incapable of hurting it. Not only that, but you have to bait it out of its little underwater hidey holes in order to get a couple of the stars in the game. Why do games always have to give their underwater creatures soulless eyes and razor-sharp teeth?
Number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9.
The Doll Room from Seventh Guest. This game messed me up as a kid. The Seventh Guest, for those of you who didn't grow up with old school computer games, was about exploring a seemingly abandoned mansion. Of course, where you solve puzzles and watch the occasional poorly acted full-motion cutscene. Now granted, I was too dumb to play this game myself. It came out when I was pretty young, but I do remember watching one of my brothers play it. The only potentially creepy thing about this game was the aforementioned FMV scenes, but for the most part they were pretty tame. That is, until you come across a room full of children's toys. Bear in mind, up until this point, no children are seen in the game. And then this happens. Yep, tormented children's souls stuck inside inanimate dolls, crying for their mothers. As if they needed to add that element in to make dolls creepy. Number 8. The Banshees and the Haunted Mansion. For those of you who haven't played this game and or haven't seen my Let's Play of it, yes, there was a three-dimensional adventure game based on Disneyland's The Haunted Mansion. The game sounds innocent and cutesy enough, and for the most part, that's exactly how it is. Oh game, you're so silly, trying to scare me with giant spiders and barely comprehensible wisps of light. And then the game is like, okay, you want us to man up? Here. Holy Christ on a cracker. That's still, to this day, one of the scariest things I've witnessed in a game, and I mainly blame this on its innocent facade. Playing this as a kid, you wouldn't even guess this game would go all the ring on your ass. Disney video games. Who knew? Number 7. Majora's Mask. This game has always been a dark mark on my past, and I've always assumed it was due to my dislike for it. And before this starts a whole unnecessary argument, let me just briefly explain myself by saying I only have minor dislikes for the game and don't completely hate it. In fact, the dislikes I have might not even be what you expect. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Cool your jets. Now, looking back, there are some legitimately disturbing things about the game, besides the great fairies. You also have the alien minigame, where the girl at Romani Ranch is convinced aliens are coming to kidnap their livestock, but no one will believe her. Of course, she turns out to be right, giving you a defend the base mission in the middle of the night. Just listen to this music. And then, when you fail this mission, this happens. What the hell? There's just too many eerie and downright creepy moments in this game to mention. They could be their own top 10 list. But put it all together and top it off with the whole impending doom story with people who refuse to believe the world is ending, even though they get to see this every time they look up, and you have the makings of a very uncomfortable game. Like it's trying to give you some depressing underlying message. Which is widely believed to be that Link is going through the grief process for the death of Navi, your fairy helper from a previous game. The first step of which is, of course, denial, much like the people in Clocktown of their own inevitable death. Oh, god damn it, Nintendo. Oh yeah, and there's also some creepy pasta video or something, I don't know. Number 6. The chainsaw deaths in Resident Evil 4. Of course Resident Evil's gonna have its scary moments. I mean, remember my comment earlier about there being a whole game genre being based around limited control and being attacked by scary creatures? But this one in particular is from Resident Evil 4. Capcom changed things up in Resident Evil 4 by giving your enemies the ability to set traps, and, more importantly, gave them weapons. Meaning, more hilarious ways to die. This also leads to one of the most disturbing deaths I've ever witnessed in a game so far. And once again, of course, this game got me when I was being young and stupid. I was trying to spook myself by playing this game in the dark, while home alone, and listening to soul coughing. Now, generally, when an enemy approaches me with a chainsaw, I tend to make them a priority. But at one point I wasn't aware that there was 2, or that the other one was right behind me. Oh god, they just chopped it clear off. Yeah, no shit game, thanks. I don't know why, but of all my Resident Evil memories, this one always got to me the most. There's just something about being in one piece and then suddenly not. I don't know. Maybe it's just how violent the delivery is. Number 5. The Shadow Hand from Don't Starve. The whole idea behind Don't Starve is that you're stranded and completely alone in a strange land, and you have to stay alive by hunting, gathering, and making a camp. Yeah, you're just gonna have to trust me here when I say that this is entertaining. The game has a very Tim Burton-esque vibe to it, which is pretty off-putting. Not only that, but you quickly learn that it doesn't shy away from making you feel hopeless and uncomfortable. You can slowly starve to death, or die in the traditional sense, by various nightmarish creatures that are more than happy to drain your health meter. Aside from keeping yourself healed and fully fed, there's also an insanity meter you have to keep an eye on. It's pretty easy to lose your sanity here by simply being in the dark, or by encountering one of the many terrifying things trying to kill you. Even though it's just as easy to regain sanity by picking flowers, it turns out to progress in the game you have to lose sanity to get nightmare fuel. Well, that's just perfect. So you begin your long trek of fighting horrifying creatures and digging up graves till your vision gets all distorted. You start seeing shadowy things that you're not exactly sure are real. Your character starts going nuts, things start watching you at night, and then all of a sudden, this happens. Now consider that by now you're completely aware of all the dangers out there. By this point you're just waiting for your loud and gruesome death to come out of the darkness. But no, it comes as a shadowy, gentle hand gliding ever so peacefully across the ground, accompanied by the soothing sound of a music box. Oh, don't worry, it's only here to put out your fire and blanket you in darkness. Number 4. The Sneaky Dentist from BioShock. Say what you want about the BioShock series, but they sure as hell know how to create atmosphere. Whereas in 2007, the usual first-person shooter was designed to make you either feel like a superhero Earth Marine or a superhero Space Marine, BioShock took the liberty of giving you a first-person shooter that made you feel lost and completely out of your element. Unless your element is water, in which case it's freaking everywhere. Get it? Water? Everywhere? No? Anyway, most creepy moments in this game are less the kind that make you wet yourself and more the kind that just make you glad this isn't real life. But the most famous scare in this game shows up fairly early when you enter a section of the city that is home to various offices to doctors, such as a plastic surgeon who's gone insane and is soldering faces in an attempt to create the perfect specimen. If that isn't spooky enough, you come across this room with a dentist chair and an upgrade chilling in the corner. As you approach, the room gets all misty, and after it clears, suddenly there's a body on the dentist chair. Oh, you can't fool me, game, trying to pull a fast one. So you mosey on over to get the upgrade and listen to the audio diary, turn behind you to leave with no problem, and then BAM! Surprise prostate exam! Well, son of a bitch! This game just pulled a jump scare on me. And in a game where the enemies are anything but sneaky and quiet. Oh yeah, and this guy has an asshole relative in BioShock Infinite as well. Number 3. The Winter Lodge from Fable 2. This game has some surprisingly dark and creepy backstories involved, and in a game that's practically drowning in British humor, you don't expect to come across such messed up crap. These weird and creepy moments happen to appear a few times behind the demon doors of the game, which are basically just there so you can walk over to a chest and get some special weapon or whatever. One particular area behind these doors, however, is known as the Winter Lodge. And just look how peaceful and calm it is. The place is pretty awesome, right? And then you come to a warm-looking lodge, the Winter Lodge, I can only assume, and this is what happens when you enter it. Good God. Once again, you're completely unprepared for this shit, and not just from the crazy unexpected jump scare, but just looking around the lodge afterwards. What the hell? What messed up mind came up with this? The rest of the game you're shooting fireballs at bandits, playing fetch with your dog, and farting on villagers, but just for brief moments the game will take a complete left turn into Amityville. Number 2. Nightmare Ned. Speaking of Disney games that try to terrify you, Nightmare Ned came out at just the right year to sneak into my timid childhood subconscious and lay its eggs there, guaranteeing that I'd never forget the bizarre and eerie shit I witnessed those days. Starring the offspring of Doug Funny and Tommy Pickles, also known as Ned, this game has you adventure through nightmarish worlds with no real rhyme or reason behind why. I guess since you're in this kid's nightmare, it wouldn't make sense. I mean, I know none of my dreams do, but just look at this stuff. What kind of repressed memories does this kid have? The one most terrifying thing I remember in this game, besides the awful platforming, is this part where you have to traverse bathtubs while mice with electronics try to fry you. What always sent shivers up my spine as a kid was the disturbing song the mice start singing.
When the moon is full and golden and bathtubs fill the air and they're partly full of water, you should say a prayer.
Sure, it sounds all cute with the chipmunk voices and everything, but what they're singing about is how they like killing people in the middle of the night when they're in the bath. No, really, these are the lyrics.
'Cause we have this wicked pastime, it's always been our dream. It's to drop electric stuff down there and watch you scream. With a toaster or a blender or any power tool, doesn't matter what we use as long as it looks cool. First we hear that sickly buzzing, you wriggle like a pop, then we see your little skeleton, it cracks us up.
I remember having a pretty big fear of large quantities of water and electricity mixing as a kid, and thus found it hard to just shrug off the silly concept of homicidal mice that could fucking kill me. Number 1. Corrupt Files. Let's be honest here. There's nothing more terrifying in the history of gaming than turning on your system with the intent of continuing a 12 to 20 hour excursion and learning that your save file is corrupt. And you have to start all over again. Chances are you aren't getting that save back, and those sleepless nights you spent just getting to that point were a complete waste of fucking time. Hope you enjoyed the story, because you get to go through it all over again. Oh, and I hope you enjoy spending hours leveling up and farming, because now you get the idea. This may be what you least expected, but back in the day when saves were less reliable and a collective number of souls cursed the name Mad Cats, this was probably one of the most stressful and stomach-turning things that could happen to you. It was both scary and spirit-crushingly frustrating, and it always happened when you least expected it. And that's my list of creepy video game moments, because nothing says scary like putting the control of the character into your hands. We may brave strange new planets, take on reptilian monarchs, but sometimes video games can throw us moments that just hit too close to home for us to keep our cool. So tune in next time where I'll review something. Good grief.